So welcome everyone to this video where we are going to look at the lessons from the Battle of Gaugamela between Alexander the Great and his army of 40,000 and King Darius of the Persian Empire and his massive army of 250,000 soldiers. Now if you have not watched the video, please go back and watch the video. The link is right there. Once you watch the video, come back so that we can discuss the key learnings from that about strategy that we could apply in our real lives. All right, so if you watched the video, you would have understood that Alexander the Great had around 40,000 soldiers, and King Darius, on the other hand, had 250,000 soldiers. Now, not just 250,000 soldiers, this was one of the largest empires in the world at that time. And they had the latest technology, which included the scythe chariots that you might have seen, and they had elephants. So these were latest technologies that, when used in warfare, could slaughter large swaths of enemy troops. Now, Alexander had only the cavalry, the infantry, and a set of people who would be using the slings. But other than that, not the funding is not equal to the Persian Empire. The number of people not equal. The technology is not equal. But still, Alexander managed to defeat the Persian army that day. How did he do that? So you will see that in the video it talks about Alexander starting with positioning his left flank in a manner that is slightly facing the left echelon. And then Alexander took his cavalry and went parallel to the army almost out of the battlefield. Now, this was a surprising move because this was not expected. What was being expected? What was expected was Alexander would come on the battlefield, fight, and then because of the superior numbers, King Darius and his army could crush the enemy easily because it was a plain field. There was no place to hide. Um, the name Gaugamela means plain field. So there are no bushes, no hills, no. So there's no place where you can have a surprise attack. Now, an interesting thing here is that Alexander, before the battle, asked his generals what their strategy would be. And he heard their strategy, and their strategy was to ambush the enemy in the night because there's no way such a small army can win. Alexander listened to them, and he then told his troops, go have a good night's sleep. We're going to go into battle tomorrow. He ignored the advice of his main generals. Now, the reason he did this was because Alexander knew that on the other side, the generals would be referring to the same battle playbook. Because these are generals with experience on either side, they would be thinking in the same manner, and the opposite side would be expecting a attack in the night, an ambush in the night. So the King Darius's army was up all night waiting for the ambush to happen, which did not. On the other hand, Alexander's troops slept soundly. It is said that Alexander came in late for the battle. And he kept King Darius waiting on the battlefield. Uh, there was another thing that Alexander knew because he had done a thorough analysis of his enemy, the Persian army. He knew that even though the army seemed big, of 250,000, majority of the people in the army belonged to the subsidiary kingdoms under Persian army who had no other option but to send their troops. They had to bow down to the Persian empire and become a part of it. They had to pay taxes if the small kings wanted to keep their kingdoms. And because of that, whenever there would be a battle, the Persian army would ask these kings to send their troops to help out in the battle. Now imagine you are under the uh, empire because of superior force of the empire, not because you want to be, right? Now your loyalty and patriotism is to your kingdom. When you go to fight for the power that is dominating you because you have no other choice, your heart and soul is really not there. You just want to come back home and be with your family and friends and your countrymen, right? So most of the people in the army of King Darius were from many subsidiary kingdoms. They were not there willingly, but they had to be there. So Alexander knew that, you know, they would not be sticking around if the head, which is King Darius, was removed from the picture. So his strategy was based on removing King Darius from the picture. So King Darius was here, he was always surrounded by 10,000 people who are called as immortals. Alexander wanted to directly attack King Darius. He knew that he will win the battle. So for that, Alexander moved parallelly to the enemy flanks, and the enemy had to also send out their troops to ensure that he doesn't go around and attack them from behind. And because a set of troops went to attack this army here, there came a gap right here, straight towards King Darius. Alexander quickly turns around and comes in the gap, and then he knew that there would not be much resistance because nobody is there to protect King Darius. They are just there. They're just there to impress, to show, but not really patriotic, loyal to the king. So as soon as Alexander approaches them and they see that Alexander has um, attacked them directly, they leave their weapons and run away, including King Darius, and Alexander wins the battle. So there are a few lessons that we have to learn from here. The lessons are, first and foremost, what allowed Alexander to win the battle was a good understanding of the environment. Let me. So he had a good understanding of the external environment. He knew that there was no option for him to do a surprise attack. He had a good understanding of the internal resources and strengths that he had. He knew that the mental caliber and the level of loyalty that his troops had as compared to the competitor. He had a thorough understanding of the competitor. Now, remember, he knew, even though it was a large army of 250,000, majority of them, their hearts were not in the battle. And he capitalized on that little bit of information, which was crucial for winning the battle. And he again ensured that these troops had to sit up all night waiting for the ambush. So they were all fatigued the day they came. So physically they were fatigued. Mentally they had no interest in the battle. He knew for sure that these troops would run away as soon as there was a direct attack. The third factor, the fourth factor, I'm sorry, is innovative thinking. Now Alexander thought out of the box, thought differently from his generals and the generals of his enemy. And he came up with a move that was so surprising that nobody could predict that. Now, some people would say that this could be his inherent quality, but I feel that it has to do something with his training. Now, do you know who Alexander's teacher was? Now, Alexander's teacher was Aristotle. Aristotle was the disciple of Plato, and Plato was the disciple of Socrates. Now, Socrates was an authentic, original thinker, and because his ideas were so revolutionary, he was asked to drink hemlock and die. You can look up Socrates' story and how he had to drink the poison for the state. But his ideas did not die. That led to a movement where Plato um, started talking about his ideas and philosophy. Then, under his discipleship, Aristotle came, and under Aristotle's discipleship came Alexander. Alexander was put under his tutelage by his father, King Philip. Now, it is said that Alexander was such a fan of these teachings, he used to carry books with him into the battlefield. So, innovative thinking is not something that is only destined for a few people like Alexander. You and I, with adequate training and guidance and having the right principles and tools, can also start thinking innovatively. So these are the key lessons. Now, these lessons will apply in the real world as well. Whenever you're going to formulate a strategy, you need to have a thorough understanding of the external environment. You need to take stock of your internal resources and strengths and see how you can leverage them against your competitor's strategy. You need to thoroughly understand your competitor, and you need to have innovative and out of the box thinking. Now, leadership is an essential part of strategy implementation. Only good leaders who are trained in these methods can formulate the right strategies and implement them. So, if you're wanting to start off as a good leader, start inculcating these practices in your thinking process. Whenever you come out with a strategy, assess the environment thoroughly, assess your organization and its strengths and weaknesses. Look out for your competitors. Know their weaknesses and strengths better than they themselves know. And the last one is try to be innovative and bring in ideas that are untested, so that that surprise effect, that that unpredictable factor can be brought in and your competitors would be shaken up. So that's it with this video. Next, we'll be talking about how to assess the environment. Thank you.